Nathan Hale had visited many unpleasant places in the galaxy, but Virex 9 station managed to feel disappointing in a very specific and professional way. The entire structure drifted around a pale blue dwarf star like a metal can that had lost the will to stay shiny. Rust crawled across its outer rings. Cargo containers floated in half-organized stacks. Even the docking lights flickered with the kind of laziness that suggested nobody had replaced a bulb in about 12 years. Nathan stepped off the shuttle carrying a small tablet that contained one very simple mission: collect the final payment from a man named Torvak and go home. In theory, it was the easiest assignment he had received all month. In practice, Nathan had learned that the universe considered the phrase easy assignment a personal challenge. The docking corridor smelled faintly of recycled air and overheated circuitry. A thin maintenance drone rolled past him, paused, and projected a holographic message that read, "Welcome to Virex 9. Please lower your expectations." Nathan sighed. Already done. He followed the station map toward Torvak's address, through narrow hallways lined with mismatched metal panels. Half the corridor lights glowed a dull orange instead of white, which gave the place the comforting atmosphere of a malfunctioning toaster. A group of cargo workers passed him, arguing loudly in 3 different languages about whose fault it was that an automated forklift had driven itself into the cafeteria wall. Nathan didn't stop to listen. Debt collectors learned early that curiosity was expensive. Torvak's apartment sat near the outer ring of the station, where artificial gravity occasionally felt like it was considering retirement. Nathan stopped at the door and checked the data again. Torvak, cargo broker. Outstanding balance, 42,000 credits. Nathan raised a finger and pressed the door chime. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. A small screen beside the door flickered to life, displaying a polite message. Occupant status, deceased. Nathan stared at it for a moment. Well, he muttered, that complicates the payment schedule. He leaned closer to the screen as if it might elaborate. It did not. The station clearly believed the word deceased was explanation enough. Nathan rubbed his face and checked the date of death in the local records. 3 days ago, 3 days. His employer back on Earth had a very strict policy regarding excuses. The debtor died ranked somewhere below, "My ship was eaten by a space whale," on the acceptable list. Nathan sighed and pushed the door. To his mild surprise, it slid open. The apartment inside looked like someone had tried to organize chaos and then given up halfway through. Cargo manifests floated across several holographic displays. Tools lay scattered across a workbench beside a half-assembled service drone. A coffee machine sat on the counter and immediately spoke. "New user detected," the machine announced in a tired voice. "If you break me, please clean up afterward." Nathan blinked. Comforting. He stepped farther inside, glancing around. The room was quiet except for the low hum of station generators and the faint ticking of cooling metal. Whoever Torvak had been, he had clearly lived a life that involved both paperwork and explosions. Nathan approached one of the floating displays, hoping to find some record of assets he could legally seize. Instead, he found a message that simply read, "Payment delayed." "Sorry," Nathan laughed softly. "Of course it is." He was about to turn towards the exit and begin the long process of filing a hopeless report when the apartment door slid shut behind him with a quiet mechanical click. Nathan turned slowly. He had not touched the door. For a moment, the room remained silent. Then a voice spoke from behind him, calm and clear. "Human." Nathan turned fully. A woman stood near the doorway. At first glance, she looked almost completely human. Her posture was relaxed but steady, her dark hair falling across her shoulders. Her eyes focused on him with careful curiosity. Only one detail separated her from every woman Nathan had ever met. Her ears were long, not slightly long, not subtly pointed. Long enough that they rose elegantly through her hair, like the curved tips of silver leaves. Nathan blinked. "Okay," he said slowly. "I feel like this conversation is about to get interesting." The woman studied him with the same calm attention someone might give an unusual animal that had wandered into their kitchen. "My name is Skarsa," she said. Nathan nodded politely. "Nathan Hale, debt collector. professional bringer of uncomfortable conversations. Skarsa glanced briefly toward the floating financial displays. Yes, she said quietly. I know. Nathan hesitated. Good, he replied. That saves time. Skarsa walked closer, her steps quiet on the metal floor. My husband was Torvak. Nathan exhaled slowly. I suspected we might eventually reach that part of the story. He is dead. Yes, Nathan said gently. The door informed me. Skarsa stopped a few steps away from him. For several seconds, she simply looked at him as if measuring something. Then she spoke again. There is still a way for you to collect your payment. Nathan raised an eyebrow. I'm listening, he said. Skarsa folded her hands calmly. In order to keep my legal status on this station, she said, I must remarry within 5 days. Nathan frowned. I'm not sure where I fit into that sentence. Skarsa looked directly into his eyes. You fit here. Nathan waited. Then he asked the only reasonable question left. You're joking, right? Skarsa shook her head. No. She gestured toward the closed door behind him. Human, she said calmly. You are mine now. Nathan stared at Skarsa for several long seconds, waiting for the moment when she would smile and admit that this was some kind of local joke. Perhaps the station welcomed visitors by pretending to legally marry them. Frontier cultures were strange. Unfortunately, Skarsa did not smile. Nathan slowly looked at the closed door behind him, then back at her. Let me make sure I understood correctly, he said carefully. Your husband died 3 days ago. I came here to collect money he owed, and your solution is marriage. Yes. Nathan nodded slowly. Good, just checking. The coffee machine on the counter made a low humming sound, as if it were enjoying the conversation. Nathan rubbed his forehead. I usually get threats, arguments, sometimes a chair thrown at me. Marriage is a new one. Skarsa tilted her head slightly. You do not seem pleased. I'm not against marriage, Nathan said quickly. I just prefer to know the person for at least 5 minutes. That can be arranged. Nathan stared at her again. You're serious? Yes. He exhaled slowly and leaned against the edge of the workbench. Okay, let's slow this down before my brain decides to leave the room. Why do you need to remarry in 5 days? Skarsa walked to one of the floating displays and tapped the air. A legal document expanded into view between them. This station operates under colonial family law, she explained. Property is owned by a household unit. When a spouse dies, the household becomes unstable. Nathan squinted at the document. Unstable how? The surviving partner must form a new household or lose ownership rights. Nathan blinked. So if you don't remarry, the station council takes everything. Nathan leaned closer to the screen, scanning the legal codes. Cargo licenses, dock permits, broker accounts, and buried in the middle of the financial data, Torvak's assets. Assets that could easily cover the debt Nathan was sent to collect. Nathan sighed. You have got to be kidding me. Skarsa looked at him calmly. I rarely joke about legal contracts. Nathan walked slowly across the room thinking. If you lose ownership, he said, the station takes the assets, which means the debt disappears. Yes. And I go home with nothing. Yes. Nathan looked up at the ceiling. Fantastic. The coffee machine beeped. Would you like coffee? It asked in a tone that sounded mildly sarcastic. Nathan pointed at it. Yes. Strong enough to erase the last 2 minutes. The machine whirred loudly. Warning, it replied. That strength setting may erase several years. Nathan took the cup anyway. He turned back to Skarsa. All right, he said, taking a careful sip. Let's assume for a moment that I accept the completely normal proposal of marrying a stranger on a rusty space station. Skarsa nodded politely. What happens next? She brought up another document. This is the contract. Nathan choked slightly on his coffee. You already wrote a contract? I prepared several options. Nathan leaned closer to the display and began reading. Temporary marriage agreement, household stabilization period, 90 days. Asset transfer authorization, valid upon legal union. Termination clause, either party may separate after contract completion. Nathan read the final line twice. Then he laughed. Oh, this is incredible. Skarsa watched him carefully. Is something amusing? Yes, Nathan said, pointing at the contract. You've turned marriage into a business transaction. She thought about that for a moment. Yes. Nathan took another drink of coffee. Well, he said, at least we're honest about it. He continued reading the document. Wait, 90 days? Yes. That's 3 months. Yes. Nathan looked up. I expected something shorter, like a weekend. The law requires stability, Nathan sighed. Of course it does. He walked slowly around the room, thinking. Outside the station window, the small blue star burned quietly in the distance. He imagined returning to Earth and explaining the situation to his employer. Sorry, the debtor died, so I left. That conversation would last about 5 seconds before security escorted him out. Nathan turned back towards Skarsa. You know, he said, most people just ask for a payment extension. I considered that. And? You looked very determined. Nathan nodded proudly. I practiced that face. Skarsa folded her arms calmly. So, she said, will you marry me? Nathan stared at her. The entire situation was ridiculous, suspicious, possibly insane. But the contract floating in front of him was completely legal, and the debt would be cleared. He sighed. You realize, he said slowly, this is the strangest collection job I've ever had. Skarsa's expression softened slightly. Is that a yes? Nathan looked at the contract one more time. Then he extended his hand. All right, he said, but if this turns into a murder mystery, I'm leaving immediately. Skarsa looked at his hand with curiosity, then shook it. Agreed. Nathan smiled. Great. He glanced at the coffee machine. Congratulations, he said. You're witnessing the fastest financial marriage in human history. The coffee machine beeped happily. I give it 6 weeks, it replied. Nathan had signed many contracts in his life. Loan agreements, asset seizures, debt restructurings, and once a document confirming that a cargo hauler legally owed his company 37,000 credits and an apology. None of those papers had required a wedding, yet here he was. The clerk behind the station counter looked so tired that Nathan suspected he had been born exhausted. The man barely glanced up as Skarsa placed the contract tablet on the desk. Household registration, she said calmly. The clerk tapped a button without enthusiasm. First marriage or replacement? Replacement. Nathan leaned toward Skarsa and whispered, Replacement sounds very romantic. She ignored him. The clerk scanned their identification chips. A holographic document appeared between them, rotating slowly in the stale office air. Nathan looked around the room. The place had the personality of a storage locker. One flickering light panel, one ancient computer, a chair that appeared to have personally offended gravity. Do you do a lot of weddings here? Nathan asked. The clerk shrugged. Mostly debt disputes. Ah, Nathan said, my natural habitat. The clerk pointed at the floating document. State agreement. Skarsa spoke first. I accept Nathan Hale as my spouse under station law for the stabilization of household ownership. The clerk nodded and turned toward Nathan. Nathan scratched his chin. This is definitely the weirdest job requirement I've ever had. The clerk stared at him. Nathan sighed. I accept Skarsa as my spouse under station law, temporarily, for financial reasons, and possibly survival. The clerk pressed another button. A small metallic ring emerged from the desk and hovered between them. Nathan blinked. Oh, good, he said. Accessories. Skarsa picked up the ring and examined it. It is symbolic, she said. Nathan took it and slid it onto his finger. It better be, he muttered. The clerk stamped the document with a digital seal. Marriage registered, he said. Nathan looked at Skarsa. That's it? Yes. Nathan folded his arms. Back home, people spend months planning weddings. The clerk shrugged again. I once registered 3 marriages in 7 minutes. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. Efficient. They stepped back into the station corridor a few moments later. Nathan looked down at the ring on his hand. Well, he said, that escalated quickly. Skarsa began walking toward the residential sector. Nathan followed. The corridor curved along the station's outer ring, large observation windows revealing the distant blue star and the scattered silhouettes of cargo ships drifting nearby. So, Nathan said, are there rules I should know about? Yes. That sounded ominous. Skarsa continued walking. As my spouse, you are now legally part of this household. Nathan nodded. Okay. You may access station systems under my authority. That's useful. You must also attend council reviews if requested. Nathan stopped. Wait, she turned. Council reviews? Yes. Nathan sighed. Of course there's a council. They resumed walking. A small maintenance drone rolled across the floor ahead of them, stopped, and scanned Nathan. New resident detected, it announced cheerfully. Nathan looked down at it. I'm still processing that myself. The drone beeped and continued on its way. They entered the apartment again a few minutes later. The coffee machine immediately spoke. Welcome back, newlyweds. Nathan froze. Skarsa looked at the machine. How did it know? The machine beeped smugly. I monitor local station records. Nathan pointed at it. You are entirely too interested in my personal life. Your personal life became entertaining. Nathan shook his head and sat down at the table. Skarsa moved to one of the holographic displays, activating several financial files. Nathan watched the screens fill with numbers. Please tell me those are the assets. Yes. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, at least the business side is working. Skarsa studied the data carefully. The transfer will begin within 24 hours. Nathan smiled. Music to my employer's ears. The coffee machine dispensed another cup automatically. Nathan took it. You know, he said, most of my jobs involve angry people yelling at me. Skarsa glanced over. And this one? Nathan gestured around the room. This one involves accidental marriage and a sarcastic coffee machine. The machine beeped proudly. I aim to provide emotional support. Nathan laughed quietly. Skarsa studied him for a moment. You find this situation amusing. I find panic unproductive, Nathan replied. He took another drink. Besides, if I start thinking too hard about the fact that I married a stranger on a space station, I might run screaming into the vacuum. Skarsa tilted her head slightly. That would complicate the contract. Exactly. Nathan set the cup down. So what happens now? Skarsa turned off the financial displays. Now, she said calmly, we live here. Nathan blinked. Together? Yes. For 3 months? Yes. Nathan leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. Well, he said after a moment, this is going to be an interesting 90 days. Nathan discovered very quickly that being accidentally married did not come with an instruction manual. The first morning began when the station lights slowly brightened to simulate sunrise, which would have been convincing if the window did not clearly show empty space and a small blue star trying its best to look dramatic. Nathan sat at the kitchen counter staring into a cup of coffee like it had personally betrayed him. Good morning, the coffee machine said. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You're suspiciously cheerful. I detect elevated stress levels in the household. You detect correctly. Behind him, Skarsa moved quietly through the room, reviewing several floating cargo manifests projected in the air. Her long ears shifted slightly as she read the data, something Nathan found strangely expressive. He turned in his chair. You wake up very early. I always wake up early. Is that cultural or personal? Both. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. I usually wake up when alarms start screaming at me. Skarsa glanced at him. You did not set an alarm. Nathan pointed at the ceiling. The station lighting did. The coffee machine beeped approvingly. Efficient wake cycle. Nathan took another drink. So, he said slowly, I have a question. Yes. Yesterday I was a debt collector visiting a client. Today I'm apparently part of station society. Should I expect strange traditions, ceremonies, ritual combat? Skarsa looked mildly confused. No. Nathan leaned back. Disappointing. She continued reviewing the cargo manifests. You will attend a logistics meeting today. Nathan nearly dropped his cup. I will what? Torvak was responsible for freight coordination. Nathan frowned. Torvak is dead. Yes. Nathan gestured to himself. And now the station expects the debt collector to manage freight traffic? Yes. Nathan stared at her for a moment. Do they know I once crashed a delivery drone into a vending machine? Skarsa paused. Did the vending machine survive? Barely. She considered this. Then you have experience. Nathan laughed and rubbed his face. Fantastic. The meeting took place in a circular chamber near the station's command hub. A long holographic table filled the room with rotating star maps, cargo routes, and blinking warning icons. Nathan followed Skarsa inside, trying to look like someone who absolutely understood what was happening. 5 station managers were already seated. A tall insect-like trader clicked its mandibles politely. A heavy-set human cargo captain waved lazily. 2 small robotic supervisors hummed softly as they processed data. Nathan leaned toward Skarsa. Is it too late to fake a sudden illness? No. The cargo captain squinted at Nathan. Torvak looks different. Nathan smiled. New management. The insect trader rotated one of its eyes toward Skarsa. This is the human? Yes. The creature studied Nathan carefully. You married him quickly. Nathan raised a finger. In my defense, I thought we were negotiating a payment plan. Several people around the table laughed. The cargo captain leaned back. Well, if you're running Torvak's routes now, we need a decision about dock corridor B. 2 shipments are trying to claim the same arrival slot. Nathan stared at the floating map. 2 cargo ships blinked red beside the same docking gate. He looked at Skarsa. She simply watched him calmly. Nathan sighed. All right, he said. He zoomed in on the station layout. Corridor B connected to 2 smaller maintenance channels that curved around the outer hull. A ridiculous idea formed in his mind. Nathan tapped the display. What if Ship 2 enters through Maintenance Corridor 12? The robotic supervisor hummed loudly. Corridor 12 is not intended for cargo vessels. Nathan shrugged. Neither is crashing into each other. The cargo captain scratched his beard. It might work. The insect trader rotated its eyes again. Unconventional. Nathan smiled. Debt collectors specialize in unconventional. Skarsa watched the route simulation. The 2 ships separated on the map. Collision probability dropped to 0. The robotic supervisor beeped. Solution accepted. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Well, he said quietly, I did not destroy the station. That's a good start. The meeting ended a few minutes later. As they walked back through the corridor, Skarsa glanced at him. You solved the conflict efficiently. Nathan shrugged. I once settled a payment dispute between 2 asteroid miners using a deck of cards and a broken wrench. Skarsa stopped walking. How? Nathan grinned. They both lost. She studied him for a moment, then shook her head slightly. You are a strange human. Nathan folded his arms. You married me. Skarsa's expression softened slightly. Yes, she said calmly. I did. They continued down the corridor together while outside the station window the blue star burned steadily, as if the universe itself had decided to watch the unusual household forming inside Virex 9. Nathan discovered that life on Virex 9 had a rhythm that was somewhere between organized chaos and mild disaster. Cargo ships arrived at strange hours, traders argued loudly in corridors, and the station's gravity occasionally behaved like it had forgotten which direction was down. Strangely, after only a few days, Nathan had started to feel almost comfortable inside the floating metal labyrinth. That realization worried him. He sat at the apartment table studying Torvak's financial records, while Skarsa worked beside him, several holographic screens hovering in the air around her. The room glowed with shifting blue data streams, numbers scrolling endlessly across the displays. Nathan pointed at one of the files. Your husband had terrible accounting habits. Yes. This transaction literally says, money thing probably later. Yes. Nathan leaned back in his chair. I've seen criminals with better bookkeeping. Skarsa calmly closed the file. Torvak believed organization limited creativity. Nathan nodded slowly. Well, he creatively hid several million credits. The coffee machine beeped from the counter. Financial incompetence detected. Nathan raised his cup. I appreciate your emotional support. Skarsa activated another file. Look at this. Nathan leaned forward. A new data chain appeared, showing a long series of cargo transfers routed through several remote systems. The shipments were labeled as mining equipment, but the cargo mass numbers didn't quite match the manifest. Nathan frowned. That's strange. Yes. Mining drills usually don't weigh exactly the same as military plasma cannons. Skarsa tilted her head. You recognize the difference. I once repossessed a smuggler's ship that accidentally contained 3 cannons and a dancing robot. She looked at him. Accidentally? Nathan shrugged. His explanation was very emotional. He studied the files more carefully. These shipments were recent. Yes. And the payments never arrived. Skarsa's long ears shifted slightly as she considered the data. Nathan tapped the screen. Someone owes Torvak a lot of money. Yes. Nathan leaned back. Well, that's awkward. Why? Because now technically they owe us. Skarsa folded her arms. You sound pleased. Nathan smiled slightly. Debt collection is a lifestyle. The coffee machine beeped again. I approve of aggressive financial recovery. Nathan stood up and paced slowly around the room, studying the rotating cargo routes. These shipments went to 3 different sectors, he said, but the final transfer point is the same. Skarsa zoomed in on the map. A small asteroid port appeared near the edge of charted space. Nathan pointed at it. Someone's hiding assets there. Skarsa looked at him carefully. You want to collect? Nathan nodded. Professionally speaking, it would be irresponsible not to. She studied the map again. That port is controlled by smugglers. Nathan shrugged. I've met worse people, such as tax auditors. The coffee machine beeped approvingly. Statement verified. Skarsa leaned slightly against the table. You seem very comfortable with dangerous situations? Nathan shook his head. Not comfortable. He tapped the screen again. Just experienced. She watched him quietly for a moment. You could leave when the contract ends. Nathan paused. That's the plan. Then why involve yourself in Torvak's unfinished dealings? Nathan looked at the floating map. The asteroid port blinked quietly on the screen. He folded his arms. Because if someone out there thinks they can steal money from my household, he said slowly, I feel professionally obligated to correct the TMI's understanding. Skarsa raised an eyebrow. Your household? Nathan blinked. That came out more serious than intended. The coffee machine hummed softly. Emotional attachment detected. Nathan pointed at it. Silence. Skarsa looked amused for the first time. You are protective. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck. I'm protective of unpaid invoices. She smiled faintly. Of course. Nathan turned back toward the map. We should send a message. To whom? To whoever owes us money. Skarsa crossed her arms. What will the message say? Nathan grinned. It will say something polite. The coffee machine beeped curiously. Nathan tapped the console and began typing. Skarsa leaned closer to read the message as it appeared on the screen. The text was short. Payment overdue. Household claim active. Failure to respond will result in collection visit. Skarsa looked at him. That is polite? Nathan nodded. For a debt collector, this is practically poetry. The message transmitted across the dark expanse of space. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, let's see who answers. Outside the station window, the distant blue star continued to burn quietly, while somewhere far beyond it, a signal had just arrived at a place where people rarely appreciated polite messages from debt collectors. The message did not receive an answer for almost 12 hours. Nathan considered that an encouraging sign. People who answered immediately were usually honest traders. People who took their time were either calculating their options or looking for a way to shoot you. Nathan sat at the apartment table with his feet resting on a crate of spare drone parts, watching the station traffic map rotate slowly in the air. Still nothing, he said. Skarsa stood near the window studying a shipment log. Patience. Nathan leaned back in his chair. I am patient. The coffee machine beeped. You refreshed the message log 43 times. Nathan pointed at it. You're becoming judgmental. The machine hummed smugly. Observation is not judgment. Skarsa glanced at the screen. They will respond. Nathan sighed. That's what worries me. At that exact moment, the station console chimed. An incoming transmission flashed across the display. Nathan straightened in his chair. Well, he said quietly, there it is. The message expanded into view. It contained no greeting, no identification, just a single line. Debt claim denied. Nathan rubbed his chin. That was short. A second line appeared. Come collect it yourself. Nathan laughed softly. I like their confidence. Skarsa studied the transmission signature. The signal originates from the asteroid port. Of course it does. Nathan stood and stretched. Well, he said, they've invited us. The coffee machine beeped nervously. That sounds unsafe. Nathan shrugged. Everything in space is unsafe. Skarsa turned toward him. You intend to go there? Yes. You realize these people may be criminals. Nathan blinked. Maybe? She folded her arms. Most likely are. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. That explains the poor payment habits. He walked toward the console and enlarged the star map. The asteroid port appeared again, a cluster of metallic structures attached to a drifting rock the size of a small city. Cargo signals blinked faintly around it. Skarsa studied the image. That port has no official law enforcement. Nathan smiled. Then we'll feel right at home. The coffee machine beeped. Your survival instincts are concerning. Nathan pointed at it again. Stop trying to ruin my confidence. Skarsa watched him quietly. You speak as if this is normal work. It is. You collect debts from smugglers often? Nathan leaned against the table. Not often. How often? Nathan thought for a moment. Enough. Skarsa sighed softly. You are a strange human. Nathan grinned. You married me. She shook her head slightly, but her expression softened. Nathan began examining the docking schedules. All right, he said. If we leave tomorrow, we can reach the port in 6 hours. Skarsa raised an eyebrow. We? Nathan looked at her. Yes. No. Nathan frowned. No? You will not go alone. Nathan laughed. This is technically your station business. Yes. And I am technically your husband. She considered that. Nathan crossed his arms. So we're both technically responsible. Skarsa studied him for several seconds. You realize I have handled smugglers before? Nathan smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The coffee machine beeped loudly. Reminder, household stability clause discourages reckless behavior. Nathan nodded. Good advice. He paused. Which we will ignore. Skarsa activated a new display showing the station hangar. We will need a ship. Nathan raised a finger. I already checked. She looked surprised. You did? Yes. Nathan expanded another file. Torvak's personal vessel appeared on the screen. A medium cargo ship with reinforced hull plating and a suspicious number of concealed compartments. Skarsa tilted her head. That ship was not registered in the official fleet. Nathan smiled. Torvak had interesting hobbies. The coffee machine beeped again. Smuggling probability, high. Nathan clapped his hands once. Perfect. Skarsa looked at the vessel again. It will be fast enough. Nathan nodded. And intimidating enough. She turned toward him. You seem excited. Nathan shrugged. I spent 10 years chasing people who run from financial responsibility. And? He looked back at the map where the asteroid port blinked quietly. This time, he said, they told me exactly where they are. Skarsa studied his face carefully. You enjoy this work? Nathan grinned. I enjoy winning. The coffee machine hummed thoughtfully. Statistical warning. Smugglers rarely surrender politely. Nathan picked up his jacket. That's fine. Skarsa stepped closer to the console and began preparing the ship authorization. The hangar lights appeared on the screen. Nathan looked at the drifting asteroid port again. Well, he said quietly, let's go introduce ourselves. Outside the station window, the small blue star burned steadily while somewhere in the dark distance, a group of smugglers waited for a debt collector who had just decided to visit them personally. The asteroid port looked worse up close. From a distance, it resembled a cluster of metallic towers welded onto a drifting rock. Up close, it looked like someone had tried to build a city out of spare ship parts and questionable decisions. Nathan guided Torvak's ship slowly through the outer traffic field, while Skarsa monitored the scanner display. 3 ships docked, she said. 2 armed. Nathan nodded. Of course they are. The cockpit lights reflected softly off the window as the asteroid rotated beneath them. Cargo drones drifted lazily around the port, moving crates from one docking arm to another. Nathan leaned back slightly in the pilot's seat. You know me, he said. Most people would send a lawyer. Skarsa glanced at him. You are not most people. No, Nathan admitted. Lawyers charge more. They docked without resistance. That worried Nathan slightly. People who intended to shoot you usually made their intentions clear. People who waited quietly were more creative. The cargo bay door slid open with a low mechanical hiss. The interior of the port was dimly lit, long metal corridors stretching deeper into the rock. 3 men waited at the far end of the docking platform, 2 humans and 1 tall alien with gray skin and mechanical implants along his jaw. Nathan stepped down from the ship calmly. Skarsa followed. The gray alien spoke first. You're the debt collector. Nathan nodded. That depends. On what? On whether you intend to pay. The alien's mechanical jaw clicked softly. You came a long way for money that doesn't belong to you. Nathan folded his arms. That's the interesting thing about debt. The alien waited. Nathan gestured toward the port. Eventually someone comes looking. One of the human smugglers laughed. You think 2 people can walk in here and demand payment? Nathan looked around the hangar slowly. No. The smuggler blinked. Nathan continued calmly. I think 2 people can walk in here and negotiate payment. The gray alien studied him carefully. You're not afraid? Nathan shrugged. I once repossessed a mining rig from a man who believed he was the Emperor of Jupiter. And? Nathan smiled slightly. He wasn't. Skarsa stepped forward quietly and activated a holographic display. The financial records appeared in the air between them. Cargo transfers, missing payments, interest calculations. The gray alien looked at the numbers. His expression changed. Nathan noticed. You didn't expect Torvak's accounts to survive him? Nathan said. The alien's jaw clicked again. We assumed the debt would disappear. Nathan nodded sympathetically. That happens sometimes. He leaned slightly closer. But here's the problem. The smugglers watched him carefully. Nathan tapped the display. Torvak is dead. Yes, but his household still exists. He gestured toward Skarsa. And I married into it. The smugglers looked at each other. Nathan smiled. So congratulations, he said. You now owe us. Silence filled the hangar. Then the gray alien laughed. A deep metallic sound. You traveled across space to claim this? Nathan nodded. Yes. The alien studied him for a moment longer. Then he sighed. You are a very stubborn human. I've been told that. The alien deactivated his weapon and turned to one of the smugglers. Transfer the payment. The smuggler frowned. You're serious? Yes. The man reluctantly activated a console. Credits transferred across the network. Nathan watched the numbers appear on the display. Every missing shipment, every unpaid contract, all settled. The alien looked back at Nathan. You could have died coming here. Nathan shrugged. That happens sometimes too. The alien studied him again. Then he nodded once. You are not like Torvak. Nathan smiled. I've heard that before. A few minutes later, Nathan and Skarsa returned to their ship. The engines hummed softly as they left the asteroid port behind. For a while, neither of them spoke. The blue star of Virex 9 slowly grew larger ahead of them. Skarsa finally broke the silence. The debt is cleared. Yes, you could leave now. Nathan nodded slowly. That was the agreement. The ship continued drifting toward the station. Nathan looked at the navigation display, then at the station lights blinking in the distance. He exhaled quietly. For most of my life, he said, I've moved from job to job. Skarsa listened. I show up, he continued, fix the problem, collect the money, and disappear. Yes. Nathan smiled slightly. I'm very good at disappearing. The station grew larger outside the window. Skarsa spoke softly. You do not have to disappear. Nathan looked at her. For the first time since they met, her calm expression carried something uncertain. Nathan turned back to the stars. You chose me because you needed a husband. Yes, he nodded. That part was clear. The ship's autopilot aligned with the docking corridor. Nathan rested his hand on the console. But somewhere between the paperwork, the cargo meetings, and the sarcastic coffee machine, he glanced at her again. I stopped feeling like a visitor. Skarsa watched him carefully. Nathan took a slow breath. The contract ends soon, he said. Yes, but I don't think I want it to. Silence filled the cockpit. Skarsa's long ears shifted slightly. You would stay? Nathan smiled faintly. Well, he said, someone has to make sure the station's invoices are paid. Skarsa looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled. Outside the window, Virex 9 drifted quietly in orbit around the blue star, waiting for the strange household that had accidentally formed inside it.